The world is in a constant state of change now more than ever. It's a world that requires resilience, flexibility, and innovation to overcome challenges and to pursue growth. That is why the University of the Philippines Los Baños is pursuing future-proofing initiatives to provide agile leadership and develop local and global communities amidst shocks and disruptions in an ever-changing world. Guided by compassion, an openness to working together, and a daring to seek out breakthroughs, UPLB constantly pushes for academic excellence, produces relevant research, establishes academic and industry partnerships, and cultivates creativity, critical thinking, and innovation. To keep up with the fast-changing world and to strive for inclusivity in development, UPLB seeks to level the playing field and expand avenues for acquiring new knowledge. It is reshaping the learning experience, enabling students and educators to continue with the learning process in vastly different learning conditions. It is expanding its academic programs and supporting initiatives to create a conducive learning environment. To address the growing complexities of modern problems, UPLB continues to break barriers across disciplines to produce cutting-edge innovations and solutions that serve the needs of various communities. It is taking on challenges in food security and sustainability and coordinating research efforts to direct the university's resources toward critical research areas, making sure that the university-generated knowledge can reach its intended stakeholders and be applied to real-life contexts. UPLB is dedicated to its commitment to contribute to public good and social welfare as it continues to work with the local government and the community to address their most pressing needs. Amidst its engagements, UPLB remains as one of the top regional and global universities and continues to be recognized in the country and across the world. As the national university, UPLB aims to be a steadfast partner in development as a producer of new approaches that minimize the cost and impacts of future shocks, and by honing leaders committed to knowledge creation, innovation, and cutting-edge research and public service. This is UPLB's roadmap to be an impactful institution in a constantly changing landscape. Responsive, innovative, future-proof.
Inisan mo makapag-game. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our practical guide in writing journal article hybrid seminar. And this is brought to you by the School of Environmental Science and Management, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. And this is a partnership between the Journal of Environmental Science and Management and the Continuing Education and Training Division of CESAM. Before we move forward, may we request everybody to scan this QR code for your attendance. So later we can give you a certificate. Okay. And also right now, may I request everybody on site, if you're able, please stand up for the national anthem and our prayer.
Please pause for a while as we invoke the presence of the Almighty Father. Let us pray. O God, Creator of all things, Master of life, Fountain of eternal joy, we praise your magnificent name and express our gratitude for the gift of life that you have bestowed on us. Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful world you've made for us. Thank you to our leaders who show us the path of goodness. Thank you to our colleagues who teach us about
Smarter decision making.
an enjoyable place to be. As we commence our endeavor, grant us wisdom and
You may now take your seats. We still have some guests right here. May I request you to enter it right? Yeah, Henry, dito Henry. Dito na. Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. Come in. Okay. So for the house rules of our event today, this webinar is being recorded for documentation purposes. You may use the chat box for greetings and comments. Questions will be entertained during the open forum. Please raise your questions by raising your hand here for our F2F audience, and chat box via Zoom, and comment section via Facebook, with the following format: name/affiliation/question. An e-certificate will be provided after completing the online evaluation form, which will be shared towards the end of the program. And now, for the welcome remarks, may we welcome our Dean, Dr. Rico Siangco, via Zoom. Dean, good morning. Dean, nakamute ka daw.
Oh, okay. How about this time? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Dean. Go ahead.
So, to each and every one of you, a very pleasant morning. And of course, to our honored guest, we have Dr. Sining Cuevas. Dr. Sining, thank you very much for your time and then for your service. Of course, to our partner universities and colleges, to different stakeholders, our hope is, of course, for all of us to then find this important event very relevant and timely. As a university, it is important that we have to communicate the results of our research results. But we understand that it's not easy to write the narratives and then the stories of all of those scientific activities that we have conducted. But it is important, however, to recognize there are formula, there are equations, there are strategies how to go about it. Because while this is a daunting task to then produce or formulate a journal article, we have to learn from the experts as to how to make this task bearable. We have to then find a mechanism or a strategy by which we can then churn out all of these journal articles in as seamless as possible, because universities are now expected to really produce more and to make sure that we are clearly understood. Gone are the days wherein we communicate among our peers alone. Gone are the days wherein we expect that the larger public will then find their way to understand what we exactly mean. As scientists and as researchers, it is now expected of us to make sure that we are clearly understood by our target audience. And this understanding is very important so that we can connect the science to the development and to the policy world. And there's so much that we have to do on these aspects because there's so much work that we have to accomplish together. Now, for our students, we organized this event because we wanted to impress upon each and every one of you the importance of publication work. Well, it is important to also emphasize that the school, SESAM, UPLB SESAM, has its journal that has been up and running for more than 20 years now, the Journal of Environmental Science and Management, or JESAM. And this has become an important platform where we also advanced scholarly work in environmental science and management, not just in the Philippines, but also in Southeast Asia. We hope that your learning, not just inside the classrooms, but also from our event today, could then be translated into publication materials that can be submitted to journals such as JESAM. It is our hope that as you then subject yourself also into this scholarly process, you find more meaning and you will then find more relevance and more inspiration in the work that you do. And that is the kind of career that we want you to pursue. To our partners, state universities and colleges, it is our hope also that you will find this activity very, very relevant. Our expert, Dr. Sining Cuevas, has been doing lots of publications and comes along with her long experience in terms of consultancy work and development work. And therefore, we have to maximize her sharing this morning. Overall, our society stands to benefit from every scholarly work and scholarly publication that you'll be doing. Muli po, maraming salamat sa time po ninyo ngayong umaga. Let's enjoy and maximize our time together, and we look forward to your concrete outputs that will emanate from your research work and made more relevant by our activity today. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Okay, thank you very much, Dean Rico. And now next, we will have our group photo. So via Zoom, RM, can you please assist us? Okay, let me request everybody to turn on your cameras. Ayan, give us your big smile. Paano yung on-site natin, Jessa, pipicture kayo lang, ikutin nyo lang. Okay. Ayan. Okay, so please ready. Give us your smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Ilan slides pa ba tayo, RM? 2. Okay, another one. Oh, okay. 12 slides. Wow, marami pa na. 1, 2, 3, smile. Ayan. Another one. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Next slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Yan. Ilan pa tayo? Marami. Dami tayo ngayon, ano? Looks like we have almost 1,000 registrants. Pero ilan na nakapasok, Patrick?
Full na.
Full na. 500 na.
300.
300 pala yung ating full. Oh. See. Mabentang lecture mo mamaya, Doc Sining. Ayan. So, okay na, Jess? 3 slides more. Okay. 3 slides more. Okay. Ayan. Sa dami, talagang ang group photo natin, medyo matagal ng konti. Just bear with us. Okay. So, okay na ang ating group photo. But before we move forward sa lecture ni Doc Sining, I'm gonna present you something about GESAM. Yan. So, by the way, papakilala lang ako. I am Tad Lawas. I'm also the managing editor of the Journal of Environmental Science and Management. And then, I am a University Extension Specialist 2 here at SESAM. Okay. So, GESAM. Yan. Journal of Environmental Science and Management. Our ISSN numbers 0119-1144. Okay, we are published by the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and then we celebrated our silver anniversary in 2022. We started in 1998. We're just among one of the 16 journals officially published by UPLB, and then also one of the 3 UPLB-based journals indexed by Web of Science. Kasama namin din dito yung Philippine Agricultural Scientists, yung Crop Science Journal, ayan. Okay. Kita niyo yung aming office dito sa SESAM, UPLB. And also our scope, you can see various scope under environmental science, environmental planning and management, protected areas development, planning and management, community-based resources management, environmental chemistry, toxicology, environmental restoration, social theory and environment, environmental security and management. And so we would like to champion inter and transdisciplinary research and NVSI management, and we give particular premium to submissions that employ integrated methods resulting in analysis that provide new insights. So being an international journal, GESAM likewise intends to publish materials that responds to the need, of course, a wider audience, not just here in Asia, but also in the Western Hemisphere then. Our editorial board, long-time editorial board member, Dr. Lilibet Acosta Michlik. Nauna pa siya sa akin dito sa GESAM actually. We also have Patrick Blackall from Australia, si Ma'am Marian de Los Angeles of RICS, si Dr. Juan Pulhin, siya ay retired professor ng CFNR, UPLB, Dr. Percy Sahise, former Dean of SESAM, Mercedita Sombilia, she's the incoming director of CIRCA. David Mark Taylor, geologist from the National University of Singapore. Rainer Vassman from Erie. Bruce Wilcox from Conservation Biology, Ecology, and Systems Ecology from Mahidol University in Bangkok, Thailand. And Jun Sia from the Chinese Academy of Science in Beijing, China. And here are indexing and abstracting institutions. Includes Web of Science of Clarivate Analytics, Cyberscopus. Of course, CHED has been a supporter of GESAM since maybe more than 10 years na. CABI and also ASEAN Citation Index. Availability, you can download our articles via UPLB Journals Online. That's handled and operated by our OBICRE, or the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research and Extension. And we publish semi-annually, June and December. And then nandyan po yung mga rates natin if you still like to subscribe on our print versions. Ayan po, I mentioned earlier our website, the UPLB Journals Online. And we also give complimentary copies when we attend conferences. The last time is the ICSET of Mapua. We were part of the conference there. And pinarem ko lang, in the future we will have another special issue under ICSET Mapua. And for our submissions from 2010 to 2023, total submissions already 2,157 articles. And our first issue, makikita nyo, yun yung unang design namin in 1998. Ito na yung sumunod na issue, wala pa ako sa GESAM nito. And then when I arrived in 2007, may mga backlog na issue, kaya in 2006 na issue, ito na yung design na pinagawa sa akin by then our dean was Dr. Vicky Espaldon. Yan, yun yung aming naging design na. And then nagkaroon kami ng facelift ng aming journal nitong 2024. This was courtesy of Miss Cathy Higantone. Ginawa niya ng bagong design yung aming cover. Still has the artwork dyan. Yung may flora and fauna, earth, yung land, water, and human. Yan, yung nandiyan pa sa photo na yan. Ito yung ilan special issues namin through the years, starting in 2012 with forestry management in Asia. This was in partnership with the Seoul National University. The 2013 harmful algal blooms in Asia with the Marine Science Institute. The building resilience to climate risk among upland and rural communities in Southeast Asia with ICRAF, this is under CFNR. Also, the special issue number 2, 2016 and 2020, also with CFNR, the Integrated Natural Resources and Management, Environmental Management. In 2017, we partnered with SEAT naman for biofuels research, development, and policy formulation and recommendation studies in the Philippines. We also partnered with the Philippine Environmental Science Association for a special issue in 2019. And our first partnership with MAPUA, the Innovation and Technopreneurship for Sustainable Environment and Development, or ICSET, special issue. And 2023, we had the Towards the Sustaining Water Security for All. And this is under the Interdisciplinary Study Center for Water of UPLB. And right now in the pipeline, we have the ILCAL, a special issue. Ginagawa na namin yan, yung about life cycle assessment yan. Abangan nyo. And here's our certificate from then Thomson Reuters na naging Clarivate Analytics na. No, dati ISI siya, naging Web of Science. This was issued in April 28, 2011 pa yan. So, but we were informed only in 2012. So, yung aming indexing under Web of Science actually started in from 2009, December 2009 special issue namin. Ayan po, pag makikita niyo po sa Web of Science, ang aming journal, type niyo lang yung aming ISSN, lalabas po kami sa Science Citation Index Expanded. Yung impact factor namin, parang ano siya, parang taas baba eh. But the latest here, makikita niyo 0.400 siya. In 2022 ba ito yung andyan? Okay. Also, we are quartile 4 sa SJR. H index is 12. Ayan po yung mga citations and collaborations namin in total sites. And with Saimago, yung aming sa SJR Saimago Journal rank yan. And then also with CHED, we were awarded the Journal Incentive Program. That was, yan, with me was, namatay na po ito si Dr. Angel Alcala. Dating secretary po siya ng DNR. Kami po ni Doc Day Slabad, former dean ng SESAM, ang nag-receive ng award nito sa Cebu, naalala ko to. And then, aside from publishing special issues and also regular issues, GESAM also conduct the Journal Management and Mentoring Program in partnership with CHED. Umikot na kami around the Philippines. Nagbigay na kami sa Batangas State University ng lectures, even the University of Eastern Philippines, Dumaguete, CDO, sa Baguio, sa Albay, and that was before the pandemic. But during the pandemic, nagkaroon din kami ng via online with Ifigao State University, Bulacan Agricultural State Colleges, and yung last naming face-to-face na Journal Management and Mentoring Program with Tarlac Agricultural University in 2023. Okay, so GESAM is already in our volume 28 this year. So, and then sana magbasa pa rin kayo and download. And of course, those who are interested, just submit your articles sa amin and just visit our website sa UPLB Journals Online. And then our members, by the way, of course, our Dean Rico Angcog is our editorial advisor. Our editor-in-chief, also via online attending, nandiyan po si Dr. Ino Lansigan, yours truly, and kasama ko yung aming masisipag na team members, si Dr. Alma Lorelay De Jesus Abejero, si Ms. Cherry Padilla, si Dr. Lucel Cui, si Ms. Catherine Higantone, and Ms. R.M. Areglado de Masuay. Yan, you can just email us also kung meron kayo gusto i-submit at sikasuhin kayo ng aming team. Alright, so at least yan, alam niyo na ang GESAM. Thank you very much. But before I will give you to our lecturer today, yung ating main event, I'll just introduce her. Dr. Sining Cuevas has a Doctor of Philosophy degree from the University of Queensland, Australia, specializing in climate change adaptation. She also has a background in economics. She has a Master of Arts in Economics in UP Diliman and Bachelor of Science in Economics here in UPLB. Excuse me. She's currently an Adjunct Associate Professor here at SESAM UPLB. She also specializes in institutional dimension of climate change adaptation, adaptation planning and project design, climate change and drought impact, and vulnerability management. She primarily works as an independent consultant in climate change adaptation and related projects funded by international organizations and multilateral development banks. She has published a number of climate change adaptation articles, as well as contributed as a reviewer of journal manuscripts in various international peer-reviewed journals. Without much further ado, may I please welcome Dr. Sining Cuevas.
Thank you, Dr. and good morning, everyone. As Dr. said, I am Sining Cuevas, and I'm an adjunct associate professor here at the School of Environmental Science and Management. And thank you for attending this talk on the practical guide in writing journal articles. And for those who are online, thank you for attending this. Essentially, the discussion is based on my notes and also experience as both an author and also a reviewer of journal articles. So Doc Thad said that my background is in economics and also climate change adaptation. So most of the examples that I'm going to give in these presentations are in those two fields. And most of the journal articles that I'll also be featuring are from the social science journals. So I hope that this presentation will be helpful and interesting to those who are planning to write their own journals or who are already drafting their manuscripts for journal submissions. And also to those who have just completed their thesis, I hope that this presentation would inspire you to write your journal articles based on your thesis. Because actually, a number of journal articles are based on a bigger research report, such as your thesis or project reports. So let us start. So let us just familiarize ourselves with the general structure of a journal article. So we have the title, the abstract, the introduction, the related literature, methodology, results and discussion, conclusion, and then the references. So, of course, journals would have a modified version of this outline, but in general, these are the different sections that are relevant and important and should be included in your manuscript. So, first, the introduction. Some people don't give that much attention to the introduction, saying that this is just to introduce the topic. But actually, the introduction sets the direction of your paper. It establishes the niche by which your paper will be in literature. Why? Because this is where you present the knowledge gap. What is the current debate in literature which your paper addresses? So in this, here are some questions that will help us identify the knowledge gap. This is not exhaustive, but hopefully this will give you an idea on how to identify the knowledge gap. So one, let's say is there a lack of information regarding your topic? This is, let's say your topic is an emerging topic that needs further exploration and explanation in literature. Or is there confusion regarding the concept? This can occur in emerging topics or even topics that have been there for decades, but still there's this multiple definition or conceptualization of a certain topic. Or there has already been an established theoretical and conceptual framework, but there is a lack of empirical evidence that would support this framework. So if there's a lack of empirical evidence, then that can be the knowledge gap that your paper or your manuscript will try to address. Or there have been a lot of empirical evidence, but there has not been an application on certain sectors. Like there is a lack of application, let's say, in the rural setting or in the urban setting, or application in agriculture sector, environmental sector, or geographically. This framework or this topic has been discussed in Africa or in Europe, in America, but not yet applied here in Southeast Asia. And what we're trying, since we are in the Philippines, we're going to apply this in the Philippine case. So those are some types of knowledge gap that your paper can address. Knowledge gap can also be about the methodological framework. So is there a lack of methodology in the area or field that you're investigating? And this is the gap that your paper will be trying to address. Or there's already established methodologies and frameworks, but they only provide qualitative analysis. And there is a lack of quantifiable metrics that can aid analysis in the field. And this is the gap that your paper will try to address. And why is it also important? Why is the knowledge gap important? Because this is where your objective will lie. I mean, there's a link between the knowledge gap and the objective. So here is an example. This is an excerpt from the paper entitled Transition Towards Green Banking, Role of Financial Regulators and Financial Institutions. So let us focus on the statements in red and those which are highlighted in yellow. So here it says, however, climate-related risks are not yet fully assessed and factored into the current valuation of assets. So this is the current state of play. This is the current conditions regarding climate risk and the financial sector. And while green banking is still and then green banking is still a new concept in the field of climate finance. So it's a new concept. There's still a lot of things that can be explored. So from this knowledge gap, the paper now identified the challenges that climate change present in the financial sector, because there is a gap regarding the linkage between climate change and the financial sector. So that's the objective of the paper. And then it describes and analyzes various tools for financial institutions that can help manage climate and credit risks. So from the knowledge gap, the paper formed its objective because it's trying to address that knowledge gap. Another example here is this is an excerpt from the paper entitled Project Coordinators' Views on Climate Adaptation Costs and Benefits, Justice Implications. Again, let us focus on the statements that are highlighted in red, and those are rather in red fonts and highlighted in yellow. So it says here, it lacks empirical studies, specifically how economics is practiced are rare in climate change adaptation measures. So there have been a lot of papers now, discussions regarding climate change and economics, but there is a lack of empirical evidence and studies. So the paper examines the perceptions and costs of benefits in already implemented climate adaptation measures. So it is examining or providing empirical evidence on how costs and benefits are addressed in existing climate change adaptation measures.
Thank
So, so it's not the introduction not only present the knowledge gap and also the objective, but it also presents the contribution of your paper. And the contribution of the paper would again go back to the knowledge gap. So it is not enough to state what the paper aims to accomplish, but it also needs to clarify why. So what is the value added of your paper? Or how does your paper differ from other studies? There are already been a lot of studies, and how does your paper differ? Is it just a repetition of something? But it also needs to give insights, new insights. So that's where you get your value added. So again, example here, this is from the Institutional Dimensions of Climate Change Adaptation, Insights from the Philippines. So let us focus on the statements in red. So here, it presents how these concepts fit in real-life conditions. What are the concepts, institutions, and climate change adaptation? So in general, talks about the linkages between climate change adaptation and institutions are more conceptual, abstract. So the paper presents how they fit in real life conditions, providing evidence, and then illustrating the linkages and interactions among the institutions governing the challenges in mainstreaming climate change adaptation. So it provided empirical evidence and illustrates the linkages. So that is the contribution of the paper. Another example, we have here the uptake and implementation of nature-based solutions and analysis of barriers using interpretive structural modeling. Again, we concentrate on the highlighted statements. So here the paper presented the direct audience that they want to address. So it provides practitioners and scientists. So the papers are primarily geared to practitioners and scientists dealing with management of natural-based solutions. And then it is providing them a novel approach in addressing the barriers for nature-based solutions. So things to consider in writing your introduction. Well, of course, choose a topic or issue that needs attention. So this is the, let's say, the current conversations in your field. And make sure that your investigation is significant or timely because you may be addressing something which has already been resolved or which has already been widely talked about. And then you offer new and relevant information. Okay, so that is our introduction. Now we go to the related literature. The related literature links our introduction with the rest of the sections. Basically, it gives us the background information regarding the topic and also provides supporting information regarding either our methodology or our results. So here, the related literature is not just a summary of information from various sources. It must critically analyze and assess the information and should illustrate the state of play or the present condition of the conversation or discussion in the field. I said that it links us to the introduction, so it fills or it expounds more, let's say, on the knowledge gap, and it also presents the theoretical and conceptual framework of your paper. So for us to be able to understand it better, let us have some examples. So this is the same from the paper I mentioned earlier, the uptake and implementation of nature-based solutions and analysis of barriers using interpretive structural modeling. So from the title, we know that this is about barriers to the implementation of nature-based solutions. So the related literature is about, presented the different barriers that are listed in literature. And while presenting the different barriers, as later in the later discussions, you will see that these barriers are linked to the methodology and findings of the paper. So here, the authors presented 15 barriers. So from the lack of political will and long-term commitment, lack of sense of urgency among policymakers until the 15th, the space constraints. Another example is from the institutional dimensions of climate change adaptation, insights from the Philippines. So the first section of the related literature is about the linkages between climate change and institutions, because the readers would need to know why institutions are important in the climate change conversation. And then the next section now focus on the adaptation part, not just the climate change. So institutional networks in climate change adaptation. And since the paper is about a case study in the Philippines, it also presented the conditions in the Philippines. But not just because we live in the Philippines, that's why we made or conducted the case study in the Philippines. It must be justified. And how do we justify this in this case? We present the impacts of climate change in the Philippines, presenting that case study in the Philippines is actually a good illustration of this type of analysis because climate change is impacting the Philippines and the Philippines is very vulnerable to climate change. So that's why when we present the case study area, we also present the justification why it is conducted in this specific area. Okay, so things to consider. So you must present a thorough understanding of the relevant literature in the field. So that's why you should be able to cite references or literature that are the relevant literature in the topic that you're working on. And then you must clearly define and properly explain the core concepts in your paper. Especially if there are multiple definitions of the concepts, you must define how your paper or identify how your paper defined this concept because that definition would be the basis of the succeeding analysis. And then you must effectively and clearly explain your conceptual and theoretical framework because this will be the basis of your analysis. Okay, some tips. So when you are doing your research, you would find articles that actually don't have any important information regarding your paper. Some with minimal information, but eventually you'll find those papers that have a lot of information, like Eureka, this paper is the main literature. So when you find that paper, look at the references. Because the references of this paper most probably would have topics that are important to your topic. I mean, these papers would probably be, would also contain the important information regarding the topic that you are researching. And it must also be timely. This is especially true to those topics that are technology dependent or topics that has a lot of developments through the years. So let's say you are working on GIS and the literature, let's say 2015 or even 10 years ago, would no longer be relevant to your topic because there have been a lot of developments already. So you must ensure that you are citing literature that are timely. Okay, so now we go to the methodology. The methodology, well, for me personally, is a very important part of the paper because no matter how good your results are, if there is a question on the methodology, it would also lead to the to questionable, or it would lead to your results or the validity of your results in question. Because so the methodology should be explained properly and your methodology should be linked to your objectives so that your results and conclusion would also again go back and be linked to your objectives and the knowledge gap that you are trying to address. So for this discussion, just to break the ice, I would ask for participation from the audience here. So this is a hypothetical example. This is about mainstreaming climate change adaptation into local national policies and plans in the Philippines. So this is the topic. And okay, so my question now is, don't be shy, when were you born? Okay, give me the year that you were born. Yun lang yung participation. O, tinuro ka. 1994. So let's put here 1994. That's the purpose lang ng tanong. And then, when did you enter the university? Mga hindi kayo estudyante. So anybody? Yung tinuturo ka ni Doc. When did you enter? 2019. So let's say 2019. Okay. Who experienced prom here? Sino nag-prom? Uso pa ba sa inyo ang prom? Kasi Valentine's Day. Kailan yung prom nyo? Yung last prom, senior prom? Sino nag-prom? Ikaw daw. 2011. Okay, so dapat dito. 2011, oops. 2011, we have 2019. Okay, and then, when did you graduate elementary? Kinalimutan niyo na. Okay, so let's just put a random number here. So let's say 2005. And then, give me a number later than 2019. 2021. Okay. So, can I go back to presentation here? Okay, so we have now all these years. So, our topic is mainstreaming climate change adaptation. Nandito na before the years 2009 and 2010. So, what is the significance of these dates? 2009 is when the Climate Change Act was enacted. So, the Climate Change Act is the foundation of the activities, or it is the institutional foundation for climate change here in the Philippines, including mitigation and adaptation. And then in 2010, this was when the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act was implemented. So those two laws are the ones that are form the institutional foundations for the climate change adaptation related activities in the country. So from there, I have a question. There's no right and wrong answer here. I would just like to determine the feel of the room. So if we're going before that, let me explain that this example is for data collection, not for the methodology on or analytical methodology of this example. So if we are going to collect policies and plans in the Philippines, and our topic is mainstreaming climate change adaptation, my question is, are we going to collect data before 2009 or after 2010 or both, before and after 2010 or 2000 and 2010? So A is before 2009, before the enactment of Climate Change Act. So who among you here thinks that for this analysis, we should collect data before 2009? Wala? Okay, who among you think that data should be collected after 2009 and 2010? Okay lang, don't be shy. Sabi ko sa'yo, walang maling sagot dito. And then, who thinks that both? Yeah, thank you for participating. Though mga shy. Okay, so actually, as I said before, there's no one answer here because it actually depends on your objective, because you must link your methodology with your objective. So let us say that your objective is to measure and illustrate the progress of mainstreaming climate change adaptation. So it is logical and rational to have a design that would compare, or let's say your analytical methodology is a comparative analysis. So you will compare the plans and policies before the enactment of the Climate Change Act and the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act, and how they develop, or how they, if there's an update regarding that policy after the enactment of these laws. So if that is your objective, then sure, the data sets that you're going to use are before and after the enactment of the laws. But let us say that your objective is to demonstrate the process of climate change adaptation mainstreaming. So the most, or the more important data sets that you would need are those after the enactment, because you're demonstrating the process. Okay? So actually, the reason why I included this kind of example is that I'm currently reviewing a paper, and I posed a question regarding the data sets that they used in the analysis. And the author justified, author or authors justified their choice by going back to the objective, justifying that these are the choices that they made because these are their objective. So linking your methodology should be linked to the objective, because this the methodology is the means by which you will be achieving the objective and presenting them in the findings and your results and discussion. So here, things to consider: you should have the appropriate methodology for your research. So again, the coherence, the linkages between objective and attaining that objective. And then this is also important, the replicability of your methodology, because replication is part of the scientific process. And with you're able to replicate the methodology to build confidence in your results. So if you should be able to explain your methodology properly, so that other people, your readers, will be able to replicate your methodology if they think that this also applies to their own situation or their own paper. And then, of course, you must have a logical design of your methodology, just as what we did, the logic between choosing the data sets that you're going to include in your analysis. So some tips. So I said earlier that we are more, the examples are more on the social science. So the methodology or data collection will be, the example here is on surveys and interviews. So if you're collecting primary data through surveys and interviews, you must include the information such as data collection design, the number of your respondents, the duration of your fieldwork, and the description of questions. And they must be clearly explained, because the purpose here is, again, for replicability, so that others will be able to replicate the methodology and then validate the results that you attained. And then you must also anticipate the queries or questions regarding your methodology, especially if your methodology falls short of the norm. So what do I mean? Or an example here is, if you have a small sample size for the, let's say, analysis that you want to have. You want to conduct a correlation analysis, but your sample size is just small. It doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot do it, but you must justify the small sample size that you have through citing similar papers or similar studies that conducted this kind of analysis with this number of samples and with acceptable and validated results. So you are basically already justifying the design of your methodology so that it will not be questioned. So here you declare the limitations of your methodology and your approach to effectively justify the choices and the design of your methodology. Okay, so now we go to the results and discussion. Okay, here, the results and discussion, again, I'm emphasizing the coherence of your narrative. They must relate to your objective because the reason why you are presenting the results is to, again, go back to attain your objective and narrow the gap, the knowledge gap that you have identified. So for us to be able to understand this better, here's the example. This is an example that I have presented earlier. This is the uptake and implementation of nature-based solutions by Sarabi et al., an analysis of barriers using interpretive structural modeling. So the knowledge gap is about the barriers in implementing nature-based solutions. So there is a limited implementation of the NBS because of the barriers. And then the study aims to identify a taxonomy of dominant barriers. So with that objective, the paper presented from the, if you recall, this is the paper that identified 15 barriers in the related literature. So from there, it identified the barriers and quantitatively and qualitatively analyzed these barriers. So it presented in the findings the 15 barriers, ranked them according to the quantitative metrics that the paper devised, and presented them here. And because the objective actually is to have a taxonomy of the dominant barriers, so the paper presented this taxonomy identifying autonomous barriers, dependent barriers, linkage barriers, and the driving barriers. And then based on the quantitative analysis, they were able to plot to which quadrant the barriers belong. So again, it is linked to the objective. The results answered the objective and eventually contributed or narrowed the knowledge gap. Okay, now we go to the conclusion. What is the primary concern in this, rather the primary point in this talk is the coherence of your narrative. So in the conclusion, you must, this must be linked to again your objective, to your methodology if the methodology is an important part of your paper, and then to the results and discussion. So let me elaborate. Here we are again working on the paper on the nature-based solutions, the barriers for implementation. And from the title, it included using interpretive structural modeling. So basically the methodology is an important part of the whole paper. So here you will see that conclusions do not need to be very long. In this example, it's just 2 paragraphs, and the second paragraph is actually the limitation. So essentially, the conclusion of the paper is just this first paragraph. And let us dissect this first paragraph. Okay, so it says that as innovative solutions for addressing multiple societal challenges, MBS are receiving increasing attention from cities across the world. So this is the current state of play, or the current situation regarding nature-based solutions. And then it presented the knowledge gap, saying that the uptake and implementation of MBS suffers from several barriers. And it presented its objective, It says that to identify the main barriers and analyze their relationship using the modeling techniques. And then it presented the methodology because, again, I said the methodology is an important part of the paper. So we identified and positioned 15 barriers at 6 levels of the ISM-based model, and the results of the study underline the importance of considering the barriers in a systematic manner. And then it also presented the contribution in terms of the methodology. And then it presented its results. So here it presented the key findings. And again, it included its contribution. So the study provides series a novel approach to systematically consider NBS barriers. So there is coherence. It is linked to the other parts of your paper. Therefore, there is a coherent narrative of your paper. So let us go some other tips. Okay, one is to think global audience. So since majority of us are Filipinos, so I'm not sure whether online there are non-Filipinos, but the focus here of my example will be here in the Philippines. So carefully explain the concept and ideas inherent in the Philippines. So I reviewed some papers, and I already know that it's from the Philippines because it's the topic is in the country. But one of the things that I noticed is that the way the paper is written, it assumes that everybody knows what a barangay is. Barangay is a concept here in the Philippines, so you must first either explain what a barangay is or put a open and close parenthesis village, because village is universally understood rather than barangay. At least your audience or your readers will understand, oh, okay, this is a small unit, it's a village. And then later on, refer to it as barangay. And you spell out the abbreviation, local government unit, and then also explain what a local government unit is in the concept of in the Philippines. Because here in the Philippines, local government unit can pertain to a province, a municipality, a city, or even a barangay. So if you just say LGU without explaining that you are referring to a certain this administrative unit, then your reader will be lost. Okay, and then make your statements concise. So journal articles have word limit, and making them concise, making the statements concise will help the article stay within this limit. And one of the things that I noticed that we Filipinos, we tend to have very long sentences. I'm not sure whether it's because it's the way we think in Filipino, that when we're telling stories, we have a lot of segues, and then before we get to the point, and then we just translate it in English. But we must go straight to the point, because long discussions or long sentences end up confusing your readers. And this is also very important, English editing. I know Filipinos are good in speaking English, writing in English, but if you are not a student of communications, you would need help in writing your paper. It can be about, let's say, using the correct prepositions, run-on sentences. Also, English editing can help make your paper concise. It can also shorten the and make your paper be within the word limit, because you are writing in a let's say professional way. Okay, Okay, choosing the keywords. So when you submit your manuscript, you will also be asked what are the keywords for your paper. So keywords are terms in aid to categorize and index your paper. So let's say your paper is about climate change adaptation. So when you search climate change adaptation Philippines, then your paper can be among those papers in the search results. Okay, so you choose a keyword that is not included in your title. Why? Because let's say in the example, mainstreaming climate change adaptation in plans and policies, climate change adaptation, plans, policies, and Philippines are already in your title. So it means that it can already be among the results when a person search for climate change, Philippines, mainstreaming. So when you choose a keyword that is not in your title, you expand the possibility that your paper will be included in the search results. Basically, if you include keywords that are already in your title, you're just duplicating it. But if you choose one that is not in your title, you are expanding the possibility that your paper will be among the results. Timetable. Okay, so reviewers are generally given a month or so to review your manuscript. And in general, from my experience, there are an average of 2 or 3 reviewers, and they will be given this a month or 2. So when you submit your paper, this will go to the editorial board of the journal, and then it will go to the reviewers, and then the reviewers will give it back to the journal editors, and then it will be given back to you for revisions. And the revisions, depending on the extent of the comments, you will be given a month, or if it is major revisions, you can be given more, or less if it's just minor. So that's about already 4 months. And then when you give it back to the journal, the journal will give it back to the reviewer, again, a month or so. So that was already 5. So minimum, if you're lucky, if your paper is good and have minor revisions, 6 months. But in general, sometimes it takes a year from the submission to the publication. Again, it depends on the review process, how much revisions are needed. So that would be your timetable. It's not a month or 2. But but rejection can be very quick. Okay? So review of your paper can be brutal. It can really be brutal. I mean, when I was starting, I had this, the review, I thought the paper was good because I was working on it, and then I thought I presented everything, and then the review that came, and it was brutal. I mean, nakakasama talaga na loob. So when you receive these kinds of review, I said you're given a month. So set it aside. Namnamin mo na muna yung review. Set it aside, give it a day or 2. If you're given a longer one, a longer revision time, even a week. Just for your emotions to simmer down. Because when you look at the review emotionally, you will be discouraged. But you must look at it objectively. So pagka umano na yung damdamin mo, go back. And actually, isipin mo, hindi kasi nila naiintindihan eh. Yung point ko, hindi na nila naiintindihan. So malamang hindi nga, because you were not able to write it in a way that you would be able to convey your message. So that's why hindi nila naiintindihan. That's why you need to revise it, and that's why ganun yung comment nila. So if you look at it objectively, you will see that, oh yeah, this reviewer's point is this, and because I was not able to explain it like this, or this is the comment and this is your justification, just like my example in the methodology. So you answer the review point by point. Even if in your mind it's very simple, you answer it. And then you look at it objectively, that you put yourselves in their shoes. Why did this reviewer commented on this? And then, okay, so because I was not able to explain this, I was not able to include this, I was not able to clearly define this. So look at it as objectively. The review is a process to improve your paper. It's not to diminish your capability na to be as a writer. Hindi kayo kilala. They don't know you. Okay? So it's not personal. They don't know who you are. That's why it's a blind peer review. So don't take it personally. Look at it objectively, one by one. And again, do not be discouraged. Okay, now in choosing a journal. One way is to choose a journal which repeatedly appears among your references. Why? Because it means that this journal is publishing papers in your topic. Okay, so let's say a certain journal always appear among your references, then this journal probably would publish a paper with your topic. And then impact factor. Okay, one of the advice of my supervisor when I was when I was taking my PhD is do not choose or avoid submitting your paper with a very high impact factor. So, parang sa loob ko, parang ano naman yata yun counterintuitive, because of course I would want to have a journal publish my paper with a high impact factor, right? However, I was just starting. It means that I have a good topic, but those journals with very high impact factor, the review process is very rigid. It's very competitive. And the people who are publishing there are established authors. So my paper would probably not have that much likelihood of being published because of the competition. So she said that choose a paper that has an impact factor that is, let's say, mid-range, not really very low, but at least in a range that that is acceptable and would give my paper a higher chance of being published. And then we must beware of predatory journals. So what are predatory journals? These are the journals that publish substandard papers that lack peer review process and editorial processing, and ask for a very high fee from the author to be published. Because predatory journals, they generally don't have a very good review process, and they're just getting money from the authors who want their papers to be published. Okay, so I did not include here, I mentioned earlier that I hope that some of you who are completing their thesis would be encouraged to publish. When you do get some results from your paper, it is possible to produce more than one paper from one thesis. Okay, you must remember, because when you try to produce one paper from your thesis, your tendency is to put all the information that you can, and the end result is that you have a very confusing paper. My thesis, PhD thesis, I was able to I was able to produce 5 journal articles. Talagang kinatas ko ang thesis ko. From the methodology, I even published something from the methodology. And then from the results, based on, let's say, the focus of the results, then I was able to publish 3 from the results of the thesis. So you do not need to cram all of the results in one paper. You can divide them and produce more than one paper from your thesis. So with that, I end the presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.
In your question. In here, on-site, meron ba tayong mga tanong? Ano yung mga batang researcher natin? Sina Frank. Frank, alam ko, marami kang pinagbabalak na i-publish eh. Baka gusto kong hinging advice kay Doc Sining. Ayan, dito pala yun, si Kuya. Ayan, ito microphone. Doc Sining, dito ka na lang para dito tayo.
Hello. Good morning, Dr. Sining. Thank you very much for the very informative presentation. I'm actually I actually finished my thesis recently, and I'm planning to publish maybe 1 or 2. I'm more curious on the related literature part of the presentation, because based on what I viewed on author guidelines, there are actually medyo di po naglalagay ng related literature component of the articles. Where do I put those? Or do I put those in the introduction as well?
No, actually, I forgot to say that yung term na related literature ay wala doon sa journal. It's just a general term that I used to describe the section. So, as you can see from the examples, there's no title na related literature, di ba? The examples that I gave are the topics, let's say this nature-based solutions, the barriers. So that is the related literature. And you put the section title, not related literature, but the topic. So in that example, you have 2.1, then the title of the barriers. So everything done, yun yung related literature. And then there's another example, this institutional dimension. Again, there's no related literature, but the title of the topic. In general, yun yung related literature mo. Pero hindi siya nilalagay as a title in your article compared, let's say, yung thesis. Yung thesis, there is this related literature and then saka yung subsections, di ba? Hindi. So, tatanggalin mo yun. Hindi siya kasama sa ano. But in general, those discussions are from literature. You are citing literature that are related to your topic.
Just to clarify, so these are going to be subsections of the introduction, just to show the...
No, the introduction is a whole new section, and then a new section for your related literature. It's not under the introduction. So let's say you introduce the topic, and then you now discuss the other or the background information or the other pertinent or relevant discussions that would support your introduction and would also support either your methodology or your results. So example natin, di ba yung sa barriers, is a different section. It's not under the introduction. So yung barriers na yon, ginamit niya para sa methodology niya, and makikita mo doon sa results, they are still the ones that are featured, and those barriers came from the related literature.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question online also from Joshua Felicita Magsumbol. Thank you, Prof, for the talk. Question po, ano po yung rule regarding publications kapag nasubmit na po ba locally published in research, can I still submit it for international publication?
Um, I'm actually, well, from my understanding, if it has already been published in ISS, I think, uh, it's already, you can no longer publish it in another journal. Because it's, a copyright na doon would be the journal that published it. So, but I think from my understanding, if it is a working paper, tama ba, Doc? If it is still a working paper, it's not published in a journal with certain ISS number, then it is still possible to publish it, but not word by word. You still need to edit it, revise it in a certain way that it's not you're not plagiarizing your own work. So, but if it has been published in a journal, whether it's local, the copyright of that paper is already with the journal that published it.
Yes, you're correct. Whether it's local or international, it's already published. You're saying na wala akong IS, Web of Science, or Scopus, kahit referee na siya, it's still already published, so you cannot publish it elsewhere now. Okay, any more questions? Meron pa? Meron pa yata yung right there. So, pili nga to.
Good morning po. I just wanted to ask, how do you publish multiple iterations of the same study without being accused of salami slicing?
Like one big project, one big report.
Okay, so I think this would apply to the thesis that can be published with different papers, through different papers, right? From the talk, we have our knowledge gap, we have our review of literature, and then we have our methodology and everything, right? So if we focus, let's say, on one result of your paper, then that should answer one objective. And then you would have to have a different set of related literature that would support that findings. If you publish another one, then it would also have different, let's say, knowledge gap that is being addressed and different objective of your paper, and then another set of related lead that would support that result. So basically, those are different papers na. If you have the same kinds of introduction, related lead, well, of course, you will have the same methodology because you use the same methodology, but that would be yung sinasabi mo na slicing of the
Salami slicing.
ng paper mo, but you are producing one whole new paper. So, yung paper na yon would have a coherent narrative. And it would be different from the other paper. So, if you're going to publish multiple papers from your thesis, then you should do further research, not just get everything from the thesis, but do further research so that your paper would have a coherent narrative. It's focusing on that topic and not your thesis. I mean the whole the whole thesis.
Okay, thank you. Next question also from Zoom, from Timothy Matthew. Good day po. I would like to ask, when it comes to journal articles, does their structure differ depending on the field and based on their research design? Thank you.
Structure of the paper?
Yes.
Well, it actually, from my observation, it actually depends on the structure that the journal requires. So some would have sections on methods, and then it would have a section on theoretical framework. So it depends on the structure that the journal is requiring. So when, let's say, when you submit a paper and then it got rejected from one journal, and then you're gonna submit it to another journal, you must again review the structure of the journal you're submitting to, because the current structure of your paper may not fit the requirements of the other journal you're submitting your paper, the new journal that you are submitting your paper to. So, so for me, it's more on the requirements of the journal.
We have another question from Zoom, or maybe this is a comment from John Patrick Mecca. When paper is already submitted in a journal, do not submit it in another journal. That's academic malpractice, correct? If the paper is published, the author can submit his report in a repository or institutional repository. Okay, thank you for that, John. And now, question from Martina Kyla Panopio. I'd like to learn more about publishing multiple journal articles based on a single paper, such as what you said or used as an example a while ago. For example, if I'm working on a project and our project report has already led to a published journal article, but there are still results that were not thoroughly highlighted, or there are insufficient funds to publish another article, would it be acceptable for me to publish it separately? Or is this solely at the discretion of the project team and funding agency? With this, can you provide ways on how to go about this?
Medyo complicated if there's a project, if it is a project paper, and I think you should, who has the right to write the paper. But okay, so my example na lang would be the thesis, because it's less complicated, because the project paper, you may not have the right to that output. Pwede kasing the owner of the report is actually the funding agency. So you would need to ask permission, or you would need authorization for you to be able to publish something, because it's a project, it's not yours. Unless you're the one who funded it and it's something that owned by you. But let's say thesis, because this is owned by you. You are the one who wrote it. So in my case, there are a lot of things. Well, I said I published 5. So I published the methodology, because it's a new methodology that in collecting data and producing quantitative metrics for the topic. So basically, my thesis was examining climate change adaptation, mainstreaming of climate change adaptation into land use planning, and it was in Albay, Philippines. So that methodology, of course, as I mentioned, I customized the introduction. It's the thesis problem is about the challenges, but my paper now is about the methodology. So I looked for the knowledge gap. What is the knowledge gap? In that topic, there are no quantifiable metrics for that topic. So that is the center of my introduction, and then also the topic in the related literature, and then presented the methodology, and then presented the quantitative results. So that's one paper, and it's about the methodology of my paper, and it is not the actual the heart of the topic of my thesis. So you mold the narrative based on that specific topic, and then may mga results pa on institutions, on resource capacity, and then so when I highlight certain results, then again, I customize the introduction and then the other parts to be able to support that result.
And also, I would like to add that that's why memorandum of agreement before a project is important, so you can already indicate there, if it's stipulated there, who will own the publication after the project ended. So in the publication, you would know what you can write or who will write and publish it. Okay? Next question also from Zoom, from Jen Garcia. Good morning po. I would like to ask if I can do one problem and different solutions and publish each solutions individually as one paper each, or have one methodology and apply it to different problems and publish it as individual papers. Thank you very much.
Actually, nalito yata ako sa question. Kasi you have different approaches, methodologies, and you want to publish it in one paper?
Yeah, actually, in both sides actually.
Well, yeah, I guess if you have a different methodologies and you want to publish it in your paper, then it means that there is a knowledge gap on the different kinds of methodologies that are needed, and you are trying to illustrate the either the best or the, again, it boils down to your objective. What do you want to do? What is the knowledge gap? Is there a need for this presentation of different methodologies? Baka naman wala and just you want. One of the things nga, the reason why you have the introduction is important is you are publishing not because it interests you, not because type mo. It's because there's a knowledge gap that needs to be addressed and you are going to contribute to something. So to answer the question, if there is a need for that different kinds of methodologies, and you're presenting it and you are evaluating them to show that this is the best one for this kind of situation, then you can have that kind of analysis. But if you are, let's say, you have one methodology with different results, then as I said earlier, you can highlight one result and this is answering what kind of knowledge gap. What is the issue that would be answered by highlighting this result? So I hope that answered the question.
So we have another question here from Dr. Charles Gunay. Charles?
I don't see. So maybe it's already an acquired skill of not so young researcher, but how do you have specific tips for, let's say, dito po kasi sa SESAM, sometimes the advisor is requiring na medyo ilagay sa title yung study area. Pero recently, Elsevier and Springer is already rejecting those. So do you have specific tips po for young researchers so that they will publish their thesis pero hindi magkakaroon ng desk rejection dahil may impression na ay region specific itong study na ito?
This is the first time I heard about it because in general, if you will see, if there these are case studies, you will see where. You will see in the title where, because it's important, especially because there are different situations. Geographical, let's say in Africa, the conditions are different, and the reason why this paper was done because this is the situation in Africa, this is the situation in the Philippines. So, from my understanding, I'm not aware na citing the area where you conducted the research would influence the rejection. But if that is the case, then probably you should choose a journal that caters to that kind of analysis. So let's say there are journals for Southeast Asia, or there are journals that highlights case studies. So probably, so that you could choose those journals because those are the types of papers that the journal publishes. So you do not stick to one journal. I mean, if you get rejected then try another one. So in my case, there are certain papers that got rejected because it's not a topic or it's not the topic that the paper is usually publishing. Parang ano lang siya, product list na kasama sa topic, but it's not exactly the types of papers that they publish. So look for another one. But if you must remember first that if you have submitted a paper, kahit gaano siya katagal, you must wait for the decision before you submit it to another. Do not submit a paper that is still being reviewed until you get the decision of the journal. You cannot submit it to another.
Thank you. We have a question from Sonal Yundial. Hi, I am Sonal. Thank you for such an amazing talk. I wanted to ask what are the other necessities we need to cater when publishing a paper. My concern is like how we search for person in Google Scholar and we are able to go to the page and see all their citation. Does it happens automatically or we need to create it? Are there any tips which we should keep in mind when we are projecting ourselves out there in scientific communities as young researchers?
I think, well, the question is actually beyond my knowledge, but I actually created a Google Scholar account. I think you are the one who would create the Google Scholar account initially, and then I just received notifications that they saw another publication that they're going to include it there. So I'm not really sure. I'm not an expert, especially when it comes to IT. Ako ay nandun na sa Generation X. So, mga ano na kami. But in order for you to have, let's say, visibility, you can create an account in ResearchGate. So you can feature your research there. There are certain, I'm not sure whether there's still social media. I'm not sure whether they are called social media sites, but like ResearchGate or academic sites, you can create an account and then let it upload your paper so that it will be visible more. I'm not sure how Google what do you call this, the algorithm. I'm not sure how the algorithm of Google works, wherein your paper will be among the first research results. So that's beyond my comprehension. But from my understanding, if there's a lot of people who downloaded your paper or research for your paper, then it will be in the upper or the first few results of the search. So I hope it's not. I think I did not answer your question exhaustively, but I hope the explanation helps.
Okay, from La Arni Natividad, from St. Louis University. Do you consider journal which was previously predatory but now in Scopus?
Okay, nagiging controversial na ating mga tanong. Again, I'm not sure if I will be able to answer this to your satisfaction.
Take the risk.
No, well, for me, when choosing a journal, my rule is that I will not pay for my paper to be published because I don't have the money. No. But if it is an open resource, they ask you for payment, but probably if it is if it has been, let's say, taken out of the predatory journal list, what you can do is do your due diligence. Look at the papers that they publish. Are they good? If you see a paper published by the journal and ikaw mismo, you yourself think that the paper is not that good and you think that it may not have been properly reviewed, then stay away from the journal. And in general, well, if you have the, I guess if you have the money to pay, but again, for me personally, I haven't paid. I choose the journals that do not ask for money. That's the best way for you to avoid the predatory journals. But if you want to pay because it's open access, then just do your due diligence, research, and see whether you think that the paper that they produce are good or not.
Okay, we're down to the last 3 questions na lang. From Shirley Pastas, good morning po from Cavite State University. How can we check if the journal is predatory? I think you already mentioned.
Well, the first one is to, they have a list. The internet has a list of predatory journals. So if you just type, let's say, the journal and then say journal predatory, and then you will have a list. And if you see that journal in the list, then stay away from it. One thing that I noticed, especially when I started publishing, I only had, let's say, 1 or 2 published works. It's not yet, I mean, it's, I doubt that a lot of people have read it, but then I received an email with a prestigious name and saying that we are inviting you to write in our journal and we welcome because of your paper, which is entitled blah blah blah. And then I see a fee. Then I convert it into Philippine peso. This is very, very expensive. But the thing is, when I did a search, then it came predatory. It's in the list and in the forum. Different fora are discussing that they also receive this kind of invitation, and then a lot of people are saying that it's a predatory journal, which also make us think, why would they invite me to write when I just published 2 papers and I am not yet that established? Why choose me, right? So I'm not saying that I don't have the capacity to publish, but I'm not yet established and I'm not known in the field. So that's one thing siguro. That's one thing that you should think about. And also sometimes they have this name that is similar to an established, let's say, institution. Be wary of that because sometimes they have this name but it's actually a different institution. So again, do diligence, research, especially if they are the ones knocking at your door, because you're just beginning, you're just establishing your name, and you don't have anything to prove yet, and then they're coming and inviting you. So just think for a while and not just jump at the opportunity.
Okay. From Eisenhower Bukalen, question po, itong structure po ba ng research that Madam presented, you presented, can it be used for a communication research?
For a communication research, into a whole research paper, you mean?
But perhaps it's a paper, maybe.
So if it is a whole new research report, actually I asked the same question to my sister. Both my sisters are communication graduates here from the University of the Philippines. And when I because I'm not a communications graduate, and I asked their advice on whether I was presenting valuable information for the journal. And I asked whether what I'm presenting is can also be applied in the research, in writing your thesis. Well, she said that there are certain aspects of it that can be applied, but the whole presentation is primarily on the journal article. So there are some sections probably that you could use in writing your report, the whole report or the thesis, like looking at the knowledge gap and then setting your objectives. But the whole presentation is primarily for a journal article rather than a full-blown research paper.
Last question. I think our battery is done. Yeah. Good morning po. It is possible to publish in a journal without including other co-authors from the undergraduate thesis research since di naman din sila interested to divide payment fee. Would credit still be fair in that case? It happens.
Okay, so the thing is, if you have co-authors, they also have a right to the paper. They have the right to be acknowledged. If they contributed to your paper, they should be acknowledged. So whether they pay for the payment fee or not, it's not a matter of your contribution, financial contribution, but your intellectual contribution to the paper. So they need to be acknowledged. Well, that is my personal opinion. So that's why, let's say, if you are publishing with the different co-authors, they contributed, right? So if that is, I think, part of the ethics of writing. So again, this is my personal view on this. And if you are paying for your paper to be published, I hope you are also checking whether the journal is a legitimate one, and be wary of the predatory ones. But my personal stand, the authors should be acknowledged.
All right, thank you for your questions. Let's give a hand again to Doc Simi. But before we go, let me read the certificate. We'll award you this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Sining Cuevas for serving as a resource person during the special lecture on practical guiding, writing a journal article, organized by the Journal of Environmental Science and Management and Continuing Education and Training Division, held at February 18, 2025 at SESAM, UPLB. Given this 18th day of February 2025, signed Dr. Rico C. Adjunct, Dean, SESAM. Again, thank you. Pipicture na tayo. And also, ito, may token ka from us. Yeah, picture tayo.
Tipo, 1, 2, 3, smile. One more. 1, 2, 3, smile. Another one. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Okay, before we go, we have our closing message naman. Also via Zoom, we will have our editor-in-chief and also Professor Emeritus of UPLB College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Felino Lansigan. Dr. Lansigan, Doc Ino, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ted. And first of all, I would like to greet our participants, the more than 280 participants all over the world and also our country. And particularly also, I would like to thank our resource person, Dr. Sining Cuevas. As part of my message, I think everybody will agree with me that the research results have to be shared. A researcher has the responsibility to share his or her expertise and contribute to the body of knowledge, as mentioned earlier. However, many of our researchers failed to communicate properly the results in scientific journals. In fact, some of them have not published their work. They should publish their work in scientific journals so that they will add to the body of knowledge. There are, of course, protocols to follow on what and how to share the results through journal publications. It is important to observe the scientific method, noting clearly the research problem being addressed, the methodology used or applied, and the analysis of results obtained or generated from the study. The analysis should be faithful to the methodology used or applied. Let me mention that again. The analysis should be faithful on how you obtain your data or generated your results. That is, the methodology dictates how the data or results will be analyzed or interpreted. A good example of this is that a probability, so-called a probability sample, has a specific method of statistical analysis compared to a non-probability sample. Or sometimes you call this the so-called purposive sample. A statistical test of hypothesis can only be applied to a sample drawn using a probability sampling technique. So if you have a so-called purposive sample, you cannot apply the so-called test of statistical hypothesis that you know or learn in statistics. The lecture of Dr. Sining Cuevas is an important and excellent reminder to our researchers who wish to write articles for possible publication in scientific journal. So please take note of those comments and suggestions by Dr. Sining. It's indeed very welcome opportunity to hear this particular lecture. In behalf of SESAM, we wish to thank Dr. Cuevas for sharing her time, the insights, and also her expertise in this particular activity. In closing, let me invite our researchers here to submit articles for possible publication in SESAM. We are working as a team, and we hope that we can receive sooner or later possible submissions of articles for consideration of publishing it in our journal, Journal of Environmental Science and Management. So again, thank you and good day to all. Thank you very much, Dr. Cuevas. Good day to all. Bye-bye.
Our team members, Jessa Aquino Canto, Robert Patrick Abambang, Ms. Cherry Padilla, and yours truly. Of course, also Jessa, we have Ms. R.M. Arreglado de Masuay, Dr. Alma Lorena Bejero, we have also Cherry Padilla, and also Catherine Higantone and Dr. Lucel Cui. Thank you very much for attending this, and we have here the QR code. You can just scan it for the evaluation, your attendance. And we hope to see you again in our future webinars, our SESAM SRIS or SESAM exchanges and trainings. Again, good afternoon. Thank you very much.